and sort of formally welcome everyone to the call this week. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. I'm going to share my screen as always. It should now be hopefully visible to you. Okay, so what I thought I'd do, I was just reflecting on the call last week and realised that actually, although we had Phil and Dinesh on from the OARC team, I think by virtue of where Dinesh was, he didn't actually sort of spend too much time looking at the agenda of the sort of forthcoming OARC meeting. So I thought I'd just spend a few minutes just looking at some of the the agenda items, just picking out a few things that caught my eye. Going through what's scheduled, just talk about that for a few minutes, and then pick up some of the sort of headlines and so on from the last week or so, and then as always, allow time for any other business that anyone wants to raise as well, which we should be able to do this week. So without further ado, yeah, I think that's what I just said. So what I've done, just taken a look at the at the 2 days, and I've picked out 4 items from each of the 2 days of the OARC meeting. So this is my entirely subjective view of what looks interesting on those 2 days. So clearly, different people will have different things that will appeal to you to a greater or lesser extent. And if you bear with me whilst I attempt to multitask, I just pop in the chat so you have it immediately to hand, the access to the agenda yourselves directly. Where there's a highlighted link, you can click on that to go through to the slides. And as always with this type of event, not all the slides are yet available. So looking at the 2 days, just as a reminder, it's the 8th and 9th of February, the 2 days of the event. So this is from Thursday the 8th. Excuse me. So the 4 sessions that caught my eye from the 8th, these in chronological order on the agenda, was a session on DNS, excuse me, DNS fingerprinting, and it's looking at the sorry, quietly expire. Talking.
Take a drink of water, Andrew. Just
give me a second. I will quickly go and grab a piece of a mouthful of water, and I will be right back. Talk about yourselves.
There you go. No need to be in physical pain.
All right.
Well, it's British and it's the afternoon, right? So he should be having probably a pint.
Maybe he's overdue.
That is an excellent idea. However, it's only Monday.
One has afternoon tea at this time in the United Kingdom.
Gin.
Right, I'm now armed with some water. So apologies for that brief interlude. No idea what suddenly dried up. It's obviously the excitement of the OARC agenda. Was causing me almost to sort of choke up with emotion. Right, let me start again. So looking at the 2 days, as I just said, I've sort of poured out just 4 items from each of the 2 days. So this is from the Thursday, the 8th of February. In chronological order, there's a session on DNS fingerprinting, and the sort of tool which I think is fairly widely used for fingerprinting is just in the process of being updated, and I believe, so based on the session description, they've now got to the first prototype stage, and this is really just a presentation to bring people up to date on that, and have a chance to sort of discuss it and take comments on the tool. So Given it's been out there for a while, I think it's good to see that the tool's been updated, and chance to see it, I think, for the first time is a good thing. So that caught my eye. And then just sort of just quickly walking through these. So second session on the Thursday that caught my eye was the impact of negative caching and DNS resolution failures. And basically, the team have done some analysis of the serve fail traffic, looking at that over an extended period. It doesn't say so on the slide, but apparently the actual volumes are high is the conclusion. So they're really just sharing their data and sort of presenting that. So I think we sort of touched on this briefly previously on this call. So it's interesting that there is now data becoming available to take a look at that, and that will be shared in this session. And then towards the end of the day, the last two on this side, we talked about both of these on the call previously. Tail Dave Lawrence is talking about Deleg, the new delegation record that has been proposed at the IETF. As I say, he gave a presentation, you may recall, on this before. Well, actually, he didn't think about it because he was taken ill at the last minute. So Ralph Weber kindly stepped in to talk about it on his behalf. And he's giving an update to that at the OARC meeting.
One minor clarification is that, besides thank you to Ralph for having stepped in then, was that it is not technically quite yet being discussed for standardization at the ITF, but we expect that to be published as a draft real soon now in advance of the talk. So.
Oh, fair enough. Well, I suppose it was discussed at the hackathon. Was that true?
It was indeed. I mean, you could make a case for why this is absolutely true, but we still actually have to get the draft published. So just in case somebody was thinking maybe they missed it, it hasn't gone out just yet, but should be real soon.
Excellent. Well, that's good to know. Yes, because we'll be heading towards the cutoff soonish, won't we? For in a few weeks' time, anyway, for new drafts. So that's be available before Brisbane, I take it, in that case, which is a good thing. And then finally, on the Thursday, the last one there, the sort of DNS Research Federation team are talking about their open source sort of testing framework for resolvers, which we're going to discuss on this call also in a few weeks' time as well. This is something which has been funded, if I remember rightly, from the blurb by ICANN. And sort of produced by the DNS Research Federation team, and this will be, I think, one of the first sort of public airings of that tool. Sort of building on a sort of similar tool that's been developed, I think, that's sort of focused more on ICANN activity, whereas this is looking more directly at an open source sort of testing framework. So those are four things for the Thursday, which caught my eye. There are plenty of others, and if you use the link in the chat, you can see what those other things are. And then likewise on the Friday, four different topics which caught my eye. One, again, these are in chronological order. There's a report on a so-called two-door attack, which is sort of focused around the DNS. So there's a presentation on that. There's also, excuse me again, Robert Seffer, I think it is given a presentation on DNS benchmarking and how to do it, to benchmark DNS systems, which should be quite useful. Third one, which sounds a slightly big brotherish, it's not quite, I think, as it may sound. Cloud DNS monitoring in a large scale, which I think is from the point of view of the operators and how to sort of monitor the sort of various systems across sort of cloud and non-cloud infrastructures. So interesting to see that. I've not had a chance to look at the slides on that one yet, but I think that'd be again quite a useful presentation. And then last one I pulled out towards the end of the day. It's not the very end of the session, I don't think, because the sort of Friday finishes off with lightning presentations. But our good friend Greg Houston is giving or sharing his thoughts on whether the DNS is ready for IPv6. Just considering some of the issues related to IP fragmentation as they and how those can be exacerbated by the use of IPv6. So he's sharing his thoughts on that, which I'm sure will provoke an interesting discussion. So those are the four things that caught my eye from the Friday. So between those and the ones on Thursday, quite a varied set of topics, and there are plenty of others, as I said earlier, but let's just give you my extremely biased view, if you are those that caught my eye in a very unscientific way. I'll just pause there if anyone's got any comments or wants to highlight anything else that they think has a special merit from the agenda, in case you think I've overlooked something which is especially important. If so, just feel free to unmute and shout out, or pop it in the chat if that's easier.
I know Peter Spacek, who's giving the talk on benchmarking 101, has commented that he thinks nobody's interested in hearing that much about benchmarking. Anyway, he's talked about also doing a webinar on it, and he's like, who would want to sit through an hour-long discussion about benchmarking? But anyhow.
Huh. Well, there you are. You can tell me there's at least one person that has an interest in it.
Have you met this group, Vicky?
I have, but I think people prefer to see I love to see the presentations that result from the testing, but yeah, I probably have limited interest in hearing about how to do it, but.
Remind me, Vicky, were you part of the program committee for this?
No.
Okay, it's just coincidental knowledge that you happen to have of his skepticism about his own presentation. Anyone else with any other thoughts on that before I move on? Give you a chance to jump in if you do.
I can't get into Indico right now, so I can't see the draft slides, which is frustrating me, but seems like with the change in years, my computer has ditched all my passwords or something.
Oh dear. That's not so good. It certainly was working fine for me earlier on today. If that's...
I'm sure it's a user error.
Yeah, I don't think it's the site, or at least it wasn't a short while ago. That could of course have changed in the interim. Okay, let me move on then, and just look at some of the highlights from the week, which those of you that have the sort of weekly headlines email will have received these earlier today. So rather less sort of DNS specific stuff this week compared to last, but two things that caught my eye. Some interesting stuff from VeriSign, looking at sort of post-quantum and the DNS, and that they published an open source implementation of one of their developments, which is and also an internet draft, which I've not looked at yet, to be fair, but they've published a draft on the use of Merkle tree ladder mode signatures within DNS-SEC specifically. So I think the open source implementation was on the Merkle tree ladder itself, and then they've looked at a specific application of that within DNS-SEC and published a draft on that. That's one of the first things I think I've seen on post-quantum and the DNS in a reasonably advanced way. So that certainly piqued my interest, and I suspect we might see more of that possibly as soon as the next ITF meeting in Brisbane, as it's interesting topic. And the second one, which sort of picks up on the presentation that's also being given at OARC that I mentioned just now, is the latest APNIC podcast. Is also looking at IPv6 fragmentation and the DNS. So, if you want to get a sort of heads up on the sort of Jeff's likely thrust of his presentation in Charlotte, if you listen to the podcast, I think you'll get the gist of the main points he's likely to cover. So those are the two things from the sort of news headlines that sort of caught my eye sort of this week. And then from other sort of not really DNS specific items, which also caught my eye, given the prevalence of GitHub, interesting to see that to use the headline, which I think slightly overstate things, it's been used, I think, rather than hijacked by hackers. So the sort of platform is being used by developers of all colors, which I suppose is hardly any great surprise. So those of you that use GitHub, it's possibly worth a look. Even more so if you use Google Mail, maybe want to look at Infostealer and how that is managing to maintain persistent access to hacked Google Mail accounts, Gmail accounts. The article gives a description of some of the mechanisms it uses to do that, exploiting weaknesses in browsers, for example. So that's worth a look if you use Gmail. The other two things that caught my eye, just towards the bottom of the screen, ICANN have announced a new grant program. It's early days yet. It's not open for applications, but they've announced details of it. So that, for those of you more in the research space, is possibly worth a look. And then in the Highline Light event, you missed it. It was the CES event in Las Vegas last week, with a flurry of tech-related announcements in a whole range of areas, with an overarching AI theme, albeit that quite a few of the AI centric things seemed very tenuous in terms of their actual use of AI, but there you are. I suppose it's good PR, but yeah, there's a load of different roundups, but I thought Tom's Guide one was quite useful personally. There are plenty of others out there, so if you've not had a chance to see some of the fun and interesting things which were announced at Las Vegas, that's maybe worth a few minutes of your time, particularly as some of the things that have been announced are already actually available for sale. Yeah, some of them perhaps a bit gimmicky, but others are already actually available for sale, including a BlackBerry style keypad for your iPhone. For example, if you want to sort of just go back in time to have a hardware-based keyboard to use with your certainly iPhone. I can't remember if it had it for Android devices as well. I think not, but definitely for iPhones. And I'll just sort of stop there for a moment in terms of things that caught my eye from the press for this week. that was pretty much everything. Yeah, just re-looking at that. Oh, actually, I've also just mentioned also the one at the top of the screen, the European Data Act, for those of you so based in Europe, and has now entered into force. So additional rules are now in place. So do bear that in mind. There's some sort of new legislation in place within the last few days or so. Okay, just looking at some of the calls for papers, workshop proposals, etc. Probably the most obvious one to highlight at the top of the screen is if you've got any aspirations for a birds of a feather proposal, even at the IETF 119 meeting in March in Brisbane. The deadline is this week, 19th of January, to put in your initial proposal. So we're sort of fast approaching the deadline for that. Do bear that in mind. There's a whole bunch of other deadlines which I won't talk to as they're all at least a couple of weeks off. I will mention though, because there's a few emails about it in the last few days, that the deadline for OARC 42 lightning talks is as late as the 8th of February, so the day before the talks. So you have a little bit of time if you want to put in a lightning talk, but I believe that's limited to people that are present in person in Charlotte. So if you're there in person and have an ambition to give a lightning talk, you have a little bit of time for that. And then I've just tagged at the bottom of the screen there, you'll see the ICANN grant program applications for that actually open on the 25th of March, but details about the program itself are already available to give people plenty of time to prepare their proposals. We've then got a whole series of events coming up over the next few months. The next one that I'm aware of is the European Commission's high-level group on internet governance, which meets in a couple of weeks' time on the 25th of January. You have to pre-register for that. The link to pre-register is on the slide. The sort of first half of the meeting, which is the morning, is an open meeting. The afternoon is a closed meeting just for member state representatives and the commission, but anyone can attend the morning session. And this time around, the agenda is sort of looking at sort of policy and standards developments. If anyone hasn't seen and is interested to see the agenda, just sort of drop me a message. I'll happily share that with you. But as I say, you do need to pre-register if you wish to attend that remotely. Then, as you can see, we've got a whole load of stuff sort of coming up through February onwards. But as always, if there's something that isn't listed on there that you think warrants being highlighted, just let me know and I'll happily add it to the list if you think it should be of interest. Okay, and then finally from me, in terms of things coming up over the next few weeks on this call, next week we'll be back to sort of more normal format, and we'll be joined by the Whalebone team with an update on the DNS-4 EU project. Just over 13 months after the sort of Whalebone and consortium were awarded the grant from the Commission to develop the new European Open Resolver. So it'll be really interesting to hear how they've progressed. Any of you that were at the, I think it was at the OARC 41 meeting in Da Nang, it was either that or the accompanying ICANN meeting. There was a Whalebone sort of update then. They gave an interesting update then, but obviously it's a few months further on from that, so it'd be interesting to see how things have continued to develop. And then sort of the following Monday, Roxana will join us to give her take on the policy aspects of the overall initiative, so looking more at it from a sort of policy point of view rather than at the sort of technical aspects, which I think Whalebone will focus on in their update next week. And then, as you can see, we've got various things lined up between now and the end of March, with a few things to be added in, but various bits and pieces along the way. And I think that's probably everything from me. So let me stop sharing and stop talking and see if there's anything that anyone else wants to sort of highlight, comment on, or otherwise discuss. And if you do, the floor is very definitely yours. And as always, just unmute and talk or put something in the chat if that's easier. I'll leave that to your discretion if you do have anything. And equally, if there's anything you think would be useful to cover in the next few weeks on the call, then again, just let me know. Not seeing anyone typing at the moment. I can't see that anyone's unmuted or raised their virtual hand. Just give you a moment to see if you do. Nope, doesn't look like it. Ah, okay, we could do that. Can we do polls? Sorry, I'm looking at the chat for everyone. It isn't always. Perhaps do it in a simple way. Do people have an opinion on the DNS for EU resolver in advance of our discussion focused on that over the next couple of weeks? Anyone think that's a good or bad thing? Feel free to unmute and say so, or put something in the chat. I know Kurt suggested we do a poll, but I don't know easily how to do that. I will look to see if it looks. Oh, actually, I can see. Bear with me a moment whilst I learn this. So, give me a second. It'll probably be a very unimaginative use of the polling facility. Right, so how do I show this? Okay, I believe I've launched a poll.
You have, we can see it.
Oh, fantastic, Simon, because I can't see anything on my screen, which is a bit of a problem. I don't see who's responded, by the way, so this is anonymous as far as I can tell. So you're not disclosing any information on your opinion if you choose to click on it.
If you could see who responded, would you hold us to it?
Not that I've had any ability to do so one way or the other, to be fair, but and I can see Kurt has commented in the chat that he will try it. I've tried to keep the question simple and not ask if you think it's a good or bad idea, because that's harder to get into a symbol.
That's a different question, though, because almost everybody will poke it just to,
Yes. And it doesn't lend itself to a yes/no answer quite so simply as will you try it? Okay, so it looks like the majority of people that have chosen to respond at least plan to try it when it's available for open use as a minimum, without inferring anything as your opinions whether you think it's a good or bad thing. So thank you for that, and thank you, Kurt, for prompting me to find out how you do polls using the tool. on Zoom, and I think you should all be able to see the results. So we got a total of 10 responses, 80% indicating an intention to try it, and 20% not to do so.
Used to be you couldn't create a poll after you'd already started the webinar. So it's nice that I can see now you can do that on demand in the middle of things.
And as you could hopefully tell, Vicky, it's reasonably idiot-proof, at least for really simple things like what we've just done, if nothing else. So yes, yeah, that's good to know for future reference. All righty, well, on that note, then bear that in mind before we have the call next week with the Whalebone team to find out where they're up to with the sort of build out of the platform and the overall capability. Be interesting to hear that sort of directly from them, and I'm sure they'd be pleased to know that there's at least some interest in trying it without inferring what your motivations for doing so may be. Right, well, if there's nothing else that anyone wants to raise this week, I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your week, and look forward to catching up next week to hear all about DNS for you. So catch up with everyone then. Have a great week. Bye all.